Yes, thank you very much. A warm welcome from my side, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Weißenhäuser Strand, Fehmarn Belt Days. We are now talking about the economics, and this session has the title that we talk about the development in Central and Northern Europe, and it's a short presentation only. We will have 4 speakers today, only talking about 10, 15 minutes maximum. In this presentation, we will then show you our views on the economic development in Central and Northern Europe. We will start with a very global perspective. And as we have with the Fehmarn Belt Days, I will also concentrate on traffic that's going on into this region. As second speaker, we have a colleague from this famous HWWI, which is the Hamburg Institute of International Economics, Professor Henning Völpel. He will have the second speech on this one. He is going more from another perspective into the question of decentralization, deglobalization. So it's about new economic developments that we all face these days. As third short speaker, we will have Thomas Becker sitting here beside me from the String Network. He will talk about his perspective. He's from Copenhagen. He joins us here on stage at the Fehmarn Belt Days. Thank you very much for joining us here aside. He will give his perspective. And last but not least, my colleague, Dr. Mirko Schönfeld, will talk about the regional impact. So the concept is as follows. We start with the global presentation. We'll bring it down to the region. My name is Jürgen Sorgenfrey. I'm an economist by education. When I talk about global trends, global trade, all these things, we talk about, as the title said, the new economic area between Central and Northern Europe. When I will go into detail, talk about climate change and global trade logistics, people often said, oh, wow, global trade, this has nothing to do with me. This is not my topic. I don't deal with that. And then I normally answer, yeah, please look around. Look where your shirts are coming from. Look where your shoes are coming from. Everybody has a mobile phone. Is it produced here in Ostholstein? Is it produced in Lolland in Sweden? No. We have already global trade around the world. And when we talk about Central and Northern Europe, I will just show you the picture where we are. So we see this region here. You can see it on the screen that we have in the northern part, the blue one, highlighted blue here, because this is a picture from the EU where they said, this is Northern Europe, and we have the rest of the world, and we are in the middle of this one. That's correct. We are in Central and Northern Europe. But the global trade that I would like to focus on is valid everywhere, and we can see it here as well. When I look around here, there are so many products coming out of Asia, coming from all over the world. When we drink coffee here at the coffee break party, then we can see that we have coffee from Africa, from other parts of the world. So we couldn't deny that global trade happens. And this is why I think this is necessary to talk about the shifts in global trade and about the ideas that may come up with global change. Especially because we see that we have, as a matter of fact, the climate change. We can't change it. It's a matter of fact, we can do whatever is possible to make it as comfortable for us as possible. But at the end of the day, we will face that we have this climate change. And the question then is, what can we do out of this one? So when I talk about global trade, you can see it here. You can see, and this is what I said before, we are still engaged in all these trade lanes. Doesn't matter whether we are in China and looking to Europe as an export region, or whether we are here sitting in Northern Europe and Central Europe and say, okay, we are having our smartphones, we're having all the other products that come from China here to us. So it's a matter of fact that we have these world trade, and I know it's a little bit artificial sometimes that when we talk about these highly condensed topics of these highly aggregated facts and figures. But at the end of the day, it is something that influences us day by day. Every time when we drink a coffee, when we wear our clothes made in China, or when we have our shoes made in Portugal or wherever in the world. So global trade is something that happens. And then the question is, if we do not want to come back to total protectionism, the question is, how can we make use of it in a situation where we face climate change, where we face all the developments around the world? You see, when we have global trade today, Matter of fact is that we see that we have, for example, trade from China to Europe. This is the so-called Far East Europe trade lane. This is only for containers, but as I spoke before about consumer goods, this is what we all face. So last year, it was about 23 million TEU. You can say one TEU is 10 tons. So we're talking about 230 million tons of cargo going in both directions. This is a huge amount. I know today morning we also spoke about passenger traffic, about ferry traffic, but at the end of the day, when we have our laptop, wherever, in which region, whether in rural region or whether in Copenhagen, in Hamburg, or in which city ever, it must have brought to us. Also in a digital world, when we can hire it somewhere in the world via Amazon or wherever, it must finally deliver. So if we want to have our smartphone at home, we want to have it at home, which means we cannot deny that we will have this kind of global trade. So this was only the trade that I've shown you before for containerized trade. I will show a little bit later that there's much more trade. So as I said before, these 23 million ton TEU or 230 million tons that we had seen here in Northern Europe, distributed from, let's say, Central Europe, Austria, Switzerland, up to Northern Sweden, Northern Norway, in all this region, this cargo has been distributed. It came, what you can see here on the screen, on this red trade route, the red one. The red one means the traditional Far East Europe trade. This is a long road. And it's vulnerable. Just remember what we saw a couple of weeks before with the Suez Canal. Just one short accident, and we see a lot of problems facing because I know it from Volkswagen, for example, they missed some ships because they have been on this vessel. Other vessels have been waiting for a week and more. So remember also what we have seen a couple of years before with all the piracy attacks in front of Somalia. So this traditional route that we see going through the Suez Canal and then coming to Central and Northern Europe, this is something that has happened in the past already and is still today a major trade lane. But why I'm talking about climate change, what does it mean? It means that the ice on the North Cap is melting, which means that the much shorter so-called Northern Sea route is possible in future. And when I come back, as I said, this is a global picture. When I come back to Central Europe, to Northern Europe, what does this mean? It means we can create trade lanes coming, for example, from China, our main trading partner here in Northern Europe, as I said before, Far East trading partner. And we can take the Northern route, which is 30, 40, 45% shorter, depends where you start and where you end, what your final destination is. So it is possible that we make use of the effects that we easily cannot change. So we can say, okay, we close our eyes, or we say, okay, we make the best out of it. Why? Not only to save money, but you can imagine if you travel just 7,000 kilometers with a vessel instead of 11 or 12,000, you save a lot of energy, which means you do something very good for the environment. So this is something that happens. So you see, I know, but people always said, oh, this is quite new. Yes, you're right. In 2007, just 2 complete through transit. In 2020, already 62, which is much more, and it's steadily increasing. But you can also see that the distances had here is much shorter, and this is what makes a lot of sense. And we can have a lot of reductions in transportation time, in fuel consumption, in environmental emission, and so on. So I think if we make use of these developments that we either cannot change, I think we can make, especially for Central and Northern Europe, something very interesting. Here you see statistics. You can see it's from Russia. Because it's along the Russian route. But what you can see on the left side is that the majority of trade is increasing, and not only containerized trade. We can talk about this one a long time, but it's a matter of fact that we don't only have containerized trade, but there's much more possible. And again, it is the fuel saving, it is the environmental friendliness that makes a lot of sense that we have this one. So last but not least, let's look, if you go to a short, what I said before, to short SWOT analysis, you can see if you came in via the shipping route from the north, instead from the south. And to be honest, the long way around the Indian Ocean, the Baltic Sea, sorry, the Mediterranean Sea, and then up to the north, ending sometimes in the Baltic Sea in Finland, is reality today. So I want to make in addition, make the eyes open for an additional trade route that comes from the north, and this should be in short time quite feasible. This means we have 2 corridors, and there are only a few missing links. What I do here is that I put things together that are even underway. You may have heard the so-called ScanMed corridor. The ScanMed corridor, the name said it already, from northern Scandinavia going down to the Mediterranean. The former speaker said he would love to have something from Stockholm going down to Barcelona. That's it. But why not extend it a little bit? What the Finnish people say, this is the Arctic Rail, and the Norwegian people in Kirkenes say, hey, we prepare ourselves for this port, and then put these pieces of the puzzle together, and then we can have this trade lane and make it feasible. So I think the strengths make it quite short. It's cost efficient. It is reduction of environmental emissions, and we have shorter and faster connection times to the market. We have weaknesses, that's no doubt. The weakness is the missing links in rail infrastructure, but they are already projected and they are already underway. So this is missing today, yes, right, but we are only talking about 2029 when the Fehmarn Belt link, fixed link is open. So it could be an idea that it's open then as well. It is not yet supported by the EU, the ScanMed. This is something that I talk about EU or with EU people about this. Oh, please don't mention this one. But at the end, it's a matter of fact. And the answer is very simple. Why? Because this short link from northern Sweden, from northern Norway, from northern Finland to the Arctic is via Norway. And Norway, as we all know, is not a member of the European Union. So nevertheless, I think that we will have these very short links, these few kilometers. It is only very, very few kilometers only that we will have this one. On the other side, we also know we have multiple operators. Yes, that's right. I think this is something we can manage. The opportunities are that we can develop this ScanMed corridor, that we here in the Hansebelt corridor can work as gateway, also as gateway to Asia. Now you know what I mean. Going northern, put these pieces of the puzzle together and then see what is possible. I think for Northern Europe, this is a fantastic growth opportunities. The threat, you can see it as well, political risk in relation to EU, Russia, there's no doubt. We need to talk about this one. I don't have a disaster scenario in mind, so I hope that the European Union and Russia will find a way to do it. And again, this is not the situation of we have the one or the other. It is that we talk about an additional opportunity. It's not the case that we say we will delete completely the traditional Far East Europe road. No, it's an additional topic that we can talk about. And last but not least, it's ice navigation. But when you see the orders of the shipping lines, they already for the traffic in the Mediterranean, in the warm waters, they already today order vessels with ice class, which means they prepare themselves already. So I think there are a lot of opportunities if you show the big picture. And I would end with this one and would say that we have some chances, we for sure have some risk, and we'll then we'll hand over to the next speaker. We can talk about questions later on, but before, please let me introduce our next speakers. We have a speaker panel you can see here. We have Professor Dr. Henning Vöpel from the Hamburg Institute of International Economics, as I said before. He will be the next speaker. Sitting behind me, we have Mr. Thomas Becker, and then we have Mirke Schönfeld talking about finally the regional implications of the changing trade pattern. And I see that these patterns are changing and there are opportunities for us. So I can talk about this a lot. Sorry, I have to stop. But it is from the growth picture, from the big picture, breaking it down to our region where we are here in the Hansebelt region. So I would like to hand over to Henning Vöpel if he's online already.
I am, yes.
So great. Thank you
very much for the kind invitation and to the organizers for having me. So it's a great pleasure for me to join this interesting panel. And yeah, I'm going to share my presentation. So I hope it's going to work. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
I hope so. Okay. Great. So I'm going to talk about re-globalization, connectivity, and interregional cooperation. And just to give an outline, the aim of my presentation is to provide a bigger picture, as you said before, and well, to put that into a broader historical and global context. So I think it's important to be aware of the fact that interregional cooperation is even more important than in the last chapter of globalization, because we are witnessing some fundamental changes. And so that's why I'm going to talk about geopolitical shifts and re-globalization, new forms and dimensions of connectivity and interregional cooperation. And I think what is very important to that regard, innovation ecosystems. So that's what I said before, just to go through this quite quickly. So I think we are at the beginning of a new chapter of globalization. The last one started 30 years ago, so in 1989, when the Iron Curtain was falling, and since then we have seen an accelerating globalization. I think that comes to an end, and already has come to an end. And so we are again at the beginning of a new chapter of globalization that will be characterized, or can be characterized, by a form of re-globalization rather than de-globalization. So maybe you have heard that some economists and colleagues are expecting a de-globalization, so a shrinking international trade, for example. I doubt that, because I think I'm quite optimistic that we can attain a new path of globalization that can be better characterized as a re-globalization rather than deglobalization. And I think we have two causes for that. The first one is that, well, the last chapter has shown that there are some severe redistributional effects of globalization on domestic economies and societies. And to that regard, we have seen some socioeconomic tensions. And who is interested in that question, I would like to recommend Danny Roderick, an economist who has provided a fantastic analysis, I think, of that cause of reglobalization. And the other cause is that we are witnessing geopolitical shifts. I mean, that is, of course, obviously due to the rise of China, and that results in societies and economies retaining more national sovereignty. And we can also see that we move from multilateralism to a new form of bilateralism, and that, of course, is accompanied by the question who will be the technology leader in the next 20 or 30 years, talking about artificial intelligence and quantum computing and other new technologies. Well, and that, of course, is not without any effect on the major economic blocks. So first of all, the US, and well, we have seen that Donald Trump's America First has just been replaced by Biden's Buy American, and China is increasingly discussing a new strategy that can be characterized or can be described by a dual circulation and a kind of decoupling. And we have some new infrastructure projects like the Belt and Road Initiative. And also with regard to China, we can see that, well, there is a response by Europe facing the geopolitical shifts, initiating a recovery and resilience program, as well as the new Green Deal, among others. And that all will lead to some spatial reallocation, the supply chain reorganization, and of course, due to that, also to a more intensified locational competition. And that all will be spurred by the post-pandemic divergence, and we can already see in the data that, well, the recovery from the pandemic will cause some divergence and an asymmetric recovery. So Europe is growing more slowly, of course, than the US, of which we have thought it would be more severely hit by the pandemic. What is not the case. China was growing even in 2020 by 2.3%. So, and that's what you can see to the right of this slide. We will see that, well, the global economy will be recovering from the pandemic in a very asymmetric way, and that of course also gives rise to the question of how regions will cope with such a global economy. So that's why I think, just to go more quickly through that, I think we have to rethink connectivity. So connectivity is a huge topic, I think, for almost all regions all over the world. So against the background of reglobalization, we will see some spatial rearticulation, that's what I've said before, and even more importantly, asymmetric decentralization, so a kind of decoupling as in case for China. So asymmetric decentralization could be a trend of great importance for regional cooperation and interregional cooperation. And of course, we have to be aware of new dimensions of connectivity that will emerge in the next month and years that are both formal and informal institutions. So thinking about international trade and some new trade agreements. So for example, the CREP, the Comprehensive Regional Economic Partnership, with China at the center of that new trade agreement that of course has a huge impact on the global economy, economic cooperation. So think of smart specialization, for example, that is a regional trend also, and regional governance that will be of great importance. So the Belt and Road Initiative is just one example for the importance and the emergence of new forms of regional governance. So why is, against that background, interregional cooperation so important, and what is key with respect to international cooperation and interregional cooperation? Well, the first and most important thing is transformation, right? So any economy, any region is facing transformations, so digitalization, sustainability, the green economy. So that is a very fundamental change. And of course, by interregional cooperation, we can also foster transformation, right? I think that is very important. And I'm talking about a more intensified locational competition. It is important, of course, for any region to create some regional centricity and attraction for international talents, to attract some human capital. That is very important, because locational competition will be pretty much about who's able to attract talent. And the other point that is quite closely related to that point is, how can we create an open innovation ecosystem? How can we attain diversity? So that comes to business culture, smart specialization, global talents in science. And well, that's also a big and important topic, that is, how can we enhance structural resilience? So what is a regional economic area? That is probably important to keep in mind. So it's about internal integration. How can we bring players together? How can we attain a tighter integration? I mean, that has been the case in terms of capital flows and labor market integration. But in the future, it will be more about how can I bring up more ideas? How can I foster innovation by a tighter inter-regional regulatory cooperation? And the other thing I think even more important is external openness. So over time, we see that open regions and open economies are much more prosperous. And that's why I think also for the future, thinking of all the transformation processes we are ahead of, I think to become an open-minded also region is very important. So talking about not just about trade, but informal networks. And of course, I mean, that's what economists have also put emphasis to. Institutions matter, and they will matter also in the future. It is about proximity, so not just distance, but also culture, infrastructure, and institution. So, that's why I would like to come to my conclusions. Having said that, so starting from the broader perspective of what's going on in terms of international trade and reglobalization, and then the importance, having mentioned the importance of connectivity and new forms of connectivity. So what are the potential effects of the Fehmarn Belt? Well, it can, I think we are all convinced about that, it can become a new European powerhouse, economic powerhouse. And so now I would like to start from the end. So what about interregional cooperation? I think we must think of interregional cooperation as gains of complementarity, innovation, and transformation and connectivity. I think we need to rethink connectivity as a new institutional design and infrastructure. So we need new institutions, we need new infrastructure. I think that is important to be aware of, that we need to rethink connectivity and reglobalization. Well, we need, I think, keeping in mind that we will be lacking some supranational institutions, and we are heading into a vacuum of geopolitical power and institutions. And to that regard, I think it's important to create a regional response to geopolitical shifts in order, well, to strengthen the economic power, to stabilize the regional balance, and well, to counterbalance also the geopolitical and economic shifts we are witnessing for the global economy. So that's what I wanted to add, and now I'm going to stop the presentation here, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Henning. Great. We will now go to the next two speakers before we come to the questions at the end. I think it's a big box of new great ideas, a new European powerhouse. So Thomas, please take over from the perspective of the new European powerhouse.
Thank you.
Great word.
Thank you. Will my presentation?
I think they will work on it. We'll come in a second.
Okay. Well, meanwhile, I'm Thomas Becker, and I work in the political organization String. As you can see on the map here, String stretches from Hamburg up to the Norwegian mountains, including Oslo. It's a collaboration, political cooperation between regions and cities. There in between, and we have a very humble vision, namely to become the world leading green hub, well interconnected by sustainable transport. And you might say that is rather ambitious. That is a rather ambitious vision. Well, perhaps not that ambitious. The OECD, which you all know, to me it represents, let's say, the core of political science and economy in today's world. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 quite bright economists and political scientists that are working together, especially on trends. They look at future trends and they advise the member states in their, I believe there are 36 member states now in the OECD, they advise them on how to conduct their policies, in particular their economic policies. The OECD came to us one day and said, do you know that in fact you have the potential of becoming a mega region? We didn't know what a mega region was. It sounded scary. So we said, we don't want to be a mega region. Then they said, no. This is the future growth center. This is the future growth centers of the world, the mega regions. That's one of the 7 mega trends. A mega trend is characterized by, it is a trend that will carry on whatever happens. And a mega trend is regionalization, that you have mega regions, but in particular in the OECD economies, that are the muscles that brings the growth, the industry, etc., the work possibilities, and then you have it spurs off to the hinterland. And the OECD told us string is a small, but it could become a mega region. What is the characteristics of a mega region more than just being a few people? Well, high education, often very high polytechnical knowledge, and a sort of a particular industry that it is well qualified to carry out. And we asked the OECD, well, what is our quality here? Well, the per capita production in green industry in your area is the highest in the world. So you produce most per capita units of green, especially business to business units, than anywhere in the world. So why would you not become the future leading center of green industry? Because you have the potential, you have the politics, you have the governments, you have a highly educated population, and for environmental reasons, because of environmental protection, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you had developed an industry that is world leading. Wow, we said, okay. And then the vision took form. We asked the OECD, could you help us then, telling String, give us some accurate recommendations on how to become this green hub, this mega region concentrated around green industry. And so they did. Well, we paid them a lot of money. As you know, the international organizations, they are also always a little greedy. They are very decent, very well, let's say, good at speaking, but they know what to charge you, and they produce this policy paper, which we are going to publicize on 11th of June in Malmö. June 11th, Malmö. Remember it, everybody. There are two important characteristics, according to the OECD, of this internal green hub, so to say, an internal. That's the joint internal market. You have to have a market before you can become a global player. You have to have demand in your own area, otherwise you can't demonstrate so that you can sell abroad. And they said, you have that. The other thing, which is more lacking, is they told us a mega region has to be very, very well interconnected. And we do have some bottlenecks. One of them, as you know, is the Fehmarn Belt. That being solved, there are other bottlenecks. But we are working on them, and maybe I can, well, before coming to the bottlenecks on the infrastructure, I can just say that we have, these are some of the, let's say, characteristics that the OECD has identified. We have more than 4,000 green tech companies, many of them in Schleswig-Holstein and Hamburg, actually quite a high concentration, and 8 times more than global average, which is quite high. Double as high as the Bay Area, which is our biggest competitor. The Francisco Bay Area, as you know, they are excellent in polytechnical skills and startups, etc., but our competitive, let's say, situation here in String is much better than theirs. We have tripled green patents number over the past 20 years, and the Fehmarn Belt Link is now being carried out, and hopefully it can be ready already in 28. So the prerequisites, according to the OECD, and as I told you before, are there to really become this stronghold of growth, green jobs, and being the center of green technologies in the future. And one thing we should always recognize is there is a window of opportunity right now that is open, but it won't remain open. I tell you, the Shanghai area are very eager to become the same as us. So as I mentioned, the Francisco Bay Area, southern Holland, northern Belgium aspire as well as the Amsterdam area. So we do have competitors, and it's a matter of who is determined politically as well as economically to go in and take that position. And that it's not enough that our business life would like it. Decision makers have to show political will in order for this to become a reality. This is how modern economy, in my opinion, works. It doesn't happen by itself. It's a result of political will together, of course, with good business. And that's so important. When the political level is telling us, well, they can just do what they want, we are open. No. You have to say what you want, because business life, they adjust immediately. They are very flexible, but they always look at where is it going, in which direction is the business, of course, because they have to earn money. So here's our plan of action in String. We have done the mapping of the green tech sector, that is done. We are working with the 4 governments, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, on an international agreement from the governments, by the governments, to acknowledge the String area as a green hub, together with some promises about help, etc. We have to work out a joint value proposition, investing and in attracting and retaining green tech companies and skilled workers, linking test facilities, and finally, not least, institutionalizing the green investment. Those are tasks that are before us now in String, but we are working on it, and it looks as if there is a lot of tailwind on this. I spoke before of the bottlenecks, because a green hub has to be interconnected. It has to be linked. You have to be able to move the workforce from one place to another rapidly and smoothly. You have to be able to commute, and you have to do it in a way that is sustainable and not polluting, and it has to be practical. We have identified the Fehmarn Belt Link. We must say that the Øresund is not completely, entirely there yet. There is a need for a tunnel between Helsingborg and Helsingør, and most likely a metro from Copenhagen to Malmö as well. And finally, but not least, the railway stretch between Gothenburg and Oslo is in a condition where it is hardly a competitor to the road. And we have heard earlier today about the need for phasing out heavy vehicles on diesel. It's not sustainable anymore. You can't have a future based on diesel long hauls. It's impossible, because you can't meet this climate change targets with that. 22% of the CO2 emissions in the EU is from transport, and in that the heavy duty vehicles is having an enormous percentage. That, I think, you can hop and you can cry, but that will be phased out. The alternative being goods on rail and goods maybe on hydrogen trucks. So these are some of the bottlenecks that we have identified in our regions that has to be solved. Others are there. There is a railway flaw between Tinglev and Padborg in southern Jutland, and there are others. But let's say these are the main challenges that we will have to face, and that we will have to accommodate. And final point, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to do a little advertisement here. This is a project that String is doing concretely. This is a physical project. This is not just words and visions. This is a physical, because on the one hand, String is a political organization, but we also do this concrete project in collaboration with Schleswig-Holstein government and with region Sealand, the region of Sealand, and with the others. But those two are the main conductors of constructing a corridor from Hamburg to Oslo, where you can drive and you can fill up your hydrogen truck. Today, this infrastructure is non-existent. We count on support from the EU, but there will be a lot of private investment as well, which most hopefully will be profitable. This project started off, I can tell you, with a lot of skepticism 2 years ago. Not many wanted to listen to it. After the German investment plan on hydrogen, I can promise you, this thing took off politically, and now it is difficult to keep people away from the project, which is very positive, of course. So this is, to me personally, also a lesson that if you do things like this, you have to be persistent. You have to carry on if you know that you're right. And we knew we were right, and here we are. I think this will be a great success, and it's very concrete. Everybody understands. We establish filling stations like a gas station where trucks that are running on hydrogen can tank hydrogen and then carry on, and thereby reducing the CO2 emission in our region. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to put it in perspective, you spoke about the green hub, the green region. I think it's absolutely correct. Professor Vöbel, Henning spoke about the connectivity. I spoke about the big picture. I think this all fits together, just to put it into perspective. And now it's the job of Mirko Schönfeld to put this into position for the region. Mirko, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Now, everybody, fasten your seatbelts. This will be a fast and furious flight through several thoughts from near shore, near bottom to higher. We have the start shot is right there for us, and I just have to make myself recognizable. I am the managing director of a company that has to do with the Fehmarn Belt Fixed Link. Yes, I am a research fellow at the Institute of Northern European Economic Research. Yes, and I am the chair of the Europa Union Ostholstein, a non-partisan association from civilians in Germany for the integrated Europe. Now, at the times of Chancellor Adenauer, there were 2 billion people in the world. Of that, 60 million Germans. Of that, 500 million Europeans. In the times of Chancellor Kohl, we had 5 billion people in the world. Of that, 500 million Europeans and 80 million Germans. Next year, we'll have 9 billion people in the world. Of those, 500 million Europeans and perhaps not again 80 million Germans. We will never drop a tear about that we are having less than 1% of the global population. But we in Europe is no longer setting the standards. We are living in a world of competition. The others grow, the others don't sleep, and they'll just continue. That is the frame which we live in. Now, the Fehmarn Belt region today is a weak structured region. We have been that in the last 70 years. We've stood there with our backs to the Baltic Sea in Schleswig-Holstein, in Denmark, and we've just looked there to Copenhagen, to Hamburg, and thought we were so small. Now we're just turning our heads 180 degrees. We're giving ourselves a hand and help ourselves to reach a higher level in the region. Now, I'll just drop some facts now. As I said, we don't have much time, and those are just numbers from Eurostat. Quite old, but this trend is still the same. Population facts. Schleswig-Holstein, quite in front. Demographic prognosis. Schleswig-Holstein and also Region Zeeland, not that good. The cities, of course, better. Next thing, who needs whom, by the way? And let's see. Oh yes, Germany is the biggest trade partner of the Scandinavian countries, but Schleswig-Holstein is a taker and not a giver. Then, gross regional product. Look at that, Copenhagen, Hamburg, and now, we don't like that one at all. Gross regional product per capita, that's what you have just said. Look at that, Schleswig-Holstein, beneath European 27, so including Romania, Cyprus, and all the others. So, having said that, we talked about common rules, a common region. Professor Vöpel used the word interregional. Yes, Professor Vöpel, but right here, right now, we are trying to build and construct one region that, in the best case, could interact with other regions than the Fehmarn Belt fixed region. And we need common rules. That picture, by the way, has been taken 1992, before the European Championship final game. After that, the German guy wouldn't have smiled like that. All right, so, and then suddenly there was a treaty about the fixed link, but there was the missing link. The missing link about what comes after we have the tunnel. We don't have common rules. We don't have common institutions. As Professor Vöpel said, we need institutions. I'm coming to that in the end. There was just a treaty. I'm a lawyer. So, Stronger Together. By the way, the Baltic Facility Solutions, we are using that Stronger Together for the last 9.5 years, just so that all the Fehmarn Belt Days guys know that. So, you need the right partner. In history, there was some guys took something not so good, as we see in the picture, but we have, we're lucky, we have good partners. We are at the Baltic Facility Solutions. We have very good partners already. We are working with them for the last 9 years. It is important to work together because there will be misunderstandings. There will be problems. There will be struggles. There will be, oh, those Germans, oh, those Danes. And we will have to accept that there is this. We will have to accept that we have to solve it. So, we at the Institute, we would love to have a Danish partner to work on that issue. Now, if we are cooperating in our heads, all those Fehmarn Belt Days guys, everybody's working together, pulling in the same direction. This is the theory. In praxis, very often, it's more a rough ride that we have to struggle together with, right? And we are prepared to do that. We are prepared to do that. Now, I have probably a handball championship and Germany lost. Now, we have a horseshoe. What is the Fehmarn Belt fixed link? We have learned from Professor Sorgenfrey that there is this northern passage. And Kirkenes is constructing the harbor. It's just the Arctic Rail missing. Then we have that route. Then we have the Fehmarn Belt fixed link. We have a horseshoe around the strongest economical region in Europe. And right there, we see the Fehmarn Belt region. the Hansa Belt region, the Fehmarn Belt region, right? In the European Union. Will there be a Europe of two speeds? Perhaps not political, but in fact, we already have that. We have to recognize it. Yes, let's don't talk about it because we cannot talk about a Europe of two speeds. We already have it. Now, what does that mean? We do have more employment, of course, because of the Fehmarn Belt fixed link construction time, but not only quantitative, but also qualitative, because those jobs that are needed, as we are working together with the consortia already, as we have been working together with the owner of the project for 9.5 years, we see how complex this project is, what skills and competences you need only to be able to play with them. And those competences are not very common in our regions, Lolland and Zeeland and Holstein yet. So there is a lot of potential, but we have to take it. Because the question is, where will the economical portal of the fixed link be? Will it be? It will be in Copenhagen and Hamburg, no doubt about that. It will perhaps be in Nykøbing, in Næstved, perhaps in Lübeck, if they're good. But if we want to strengthen the region, together with modern and innovative projects, then we have to make sure that the economical portal is in our region, so that we have the strength to become one region. It would be like that, right? So that would be a very, very important point. We can be a pulsating center, as we heard, mega region, right? And we have European centrifugal powers in our days. We see that in many European countries. We have to be strong, and here we have, to put it that way, one of the finest ways to cement the link between European partners, committed to by European countries. So, and we see that as the biggest economic recovery plan since Schleswig-Holstein built the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal, Northeastern Sea Channel. So, and there are some truths. Industry follows energy. That's why we have the Ruhrgebiet, Thyssen, Krupp, Siemens, AEG, Bosch. But that's not the point anymore. Today, 90% of all data on the globe has been produced in the last 2 years. What do we need to have a place for that and to work with that, to administrate it? We need space and we need energy. What do we have here in our region? We do have space and energy. So together with what Professor Sorgenfrey said, that we have this northern route and so we have the horseshoe, and we have this region. We have the biggest exporter in southern Germany. So we have a power region for the next decades. Then everybody who reads that is taken aback the first time. Yes, globalization plus digitalization equals regionalization. Why is that? Because we know with one click on our phones, we know what we can purchase. We know what we can have. And we see that on our digital phones. And we want to have it now. How can we have it now? Because it's being produced regionally. And as Professor Fürper said also, we will have a more regional economy in the future. And this is also promoted by your work. This is important for all of us. There are many aspects to have a prosper society, but all of those emerge from those three. You need children for the next generation, you have to educate them good enough, and you have to have infrastructure in all aspects. That is the root of it. And we are in the pole position for that. Why? Preventers are not to find in history books, but we are here to do it. And to tell you what, I don't like all those. We have had Fehmarn Belt Days in 2012, 14, 16, 18, and now 21. We do have to set our words into action now. It is not enough anymore to dream about a common region. It's now time to set action. So we don't want to react, we want to take the action. And here's some of the points. We have to learn our languages. I'm speaking English now. We are speaking English. Why is that? Teach our children our languages. Put them into school. Frau Prien, Herr Günther, put that into school. Next thing, we have to have a structured and institutionalized cooperation, as we have heard already. We have to institutionalize it, and that means we have to have it from the ministers of our regions. We have to have working groups in, what's that there, in tax, legal, social, health insurance, and all those other things. We have to have working groups, and we have to have a Fehmarnbelt Development Agency. We have to have an agency that is the point of contact for onboarding for the region, questioning, and they have to have resources for that, and we have to implement that to take actions. So, did we all hear the starting shot now? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. I think we all felt your energy. Thank you very much, Birko. So I think we heard three interesting speeches, three good comments, good ideas. I just took the chance and had the opportunity to look to the chat. There were at least two comments I would like to read in the last 1.5 minutes. The first one is from Professor Vöpel, Henning Vöpel. In the chat, they said, you talk about the new chapter of globalization. Does this mean a new Buy British? So I think you spoke about this one, but maybe you can make it clear.
Well, I think that would not be a good approach to changes in globalization. I like the idea, pretty much the idea of mega regions, and I think, well, it's time to see that that we have all the prerequisites, right? We have good institutions, we have good governance, we have the culture. That is very important, I think, to create a tighter region. So I think it's up to us to be faster and to create that region that can be more prospering, right? And so it's no time to wait for that, especially in times of fundamental changes when others, and I think that was becoming quite clear, others are speeding up, right? So, and we need to cope with that, and it's time. And I think we have all the prerequisites, and more importantly, we have all the institutions and also the players, right, to do that. So that's I think, and the Fehmarnbelt Days 2021 have shown that that we are ready to do that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, the second comment there I saw in the chat in the internet goes to Thomas Becker. Thomas, there was the guys you wrote down in Malmö. We only heard about the Greater Copenhagen region. He refers to your mega region. I think maybe you can comment these two words. I know it's a little bit overpointed. Let's say it this way.
Okay. Am I on? Yes. Well, we are Greater Copenhagen and String are two sister organizations, basically working more or less for the same thing. Greater Copenhagen being concentrated in the area around Copenhagen, Malmö, and those municipalities and cities that are there. String being a larger stretch all the way from the Norwegian mountains, as I said, to the south of Hamburg. And yes, we forgive us if this is confused. Sometimes I didn't invent it that way, but we work very well together, and we both have, let's say, our competences. We work in the same direction and as good colleagues, if that is the answer. And then one final comment, Mr. Chair, please allow me. I think we're going over the time. I wanted to ask Mirko and yourself, actually. Have you, with the knowledge that you have you ever been considering making economic zones? One perhaps, and I know this is very controversial, but I take the chance. In the Maghreb countries, in Northern Africa, there's clearly a need for growth. I mean, we can see all the problems that are, I mean, a desperate youth that can't get jobs, no growth, nothing. What is your opinion about the European Union actually facilitating the establishment of such an economic entity, perhaps as an alternative to China? We also saw the transport from China, which is highly unsustainable, to say the least. Not speaking about how things are produced over there, but you know, could you react to that?
Yeah, I could. I would do it very quickly because we already had time out.
Sorry.
So we are running over time. But I think, yes, I have also a lot of experience in this one. I think it is absolutely okay to develop such regions, but it is a must that there must be a cultural similarity in this one. Because if you have much different cultures, would like to bring them together as a mix, I think history has shown that this is normally not working. This is a situation in Maghreb where you bring so many different people together.
Yeah.
But I think, and this is, I think, for good for the Fehmarn Belt days. If I would have born 100 years before, I would have been Danish. So I think Denmark, Sweden, Norway, we are all so close. I think this is a good news at the end of the Fehmarn Belt days. There was one question for Mirko, but due to the time, sorry, Mirko, we have to step out. I think it was very interesting. Very, very many thanks, Professor Föpe, Thomas Becker, Mirko Schifeld. Thank you all. And I think it was, hopefully for me at least, it was a very interesting, very good session. I learned a lot, and I thank you very much here on stage as well as online. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.